Let's go to Canberra now, where independent MPs will decide the fate of the super-sized fishing trawler, the Able Tasman. The government wants to block the ship from fishing in Australian waters for 2 years, a move the coalition opposes. One of those MPs the government needs the support of is the member for New England, Tony Windsor, and he joins us now from Parliament House. Good morning, thanks for your time. As of last night, you still hadn't made up your mind whether you would support the government's legislation or not. Have you decided yet whether you will support it?
No, I haven't. I'm getting some further information this morning, hopefully, some legal information and some process-related information that I'll go through. I had an absolutely frantic day on a whole range of issues yesterday, so I didn't have a lot of time to devote to this particular issue. I made a number of phone calls, but I'll be following up on this issue during the day today.
Are you leaning one way or the other? The crossbenchers seem to be split on this issue.
No, I genuinely haven't made a decision, so I'm not leaning anyway. I want to get the facts in front of me. I do have concerns in terms of the process that's here, and I want to work through those process issues. I've battled away in this Parliament for a number of years now, and only just been successful in developing a better process in terms of large coal mines and coal seam gas issues, and that process has to be based on on science and real process where both sides are involved. Well, I do have some concerns about the rush in relation to this particular issue. It seems as though the company's been working with the government and the bureaucracy for a couple of years, and there's been approval processes along the way and indications that they could proceed. I want to find out exactly where those breaches of process have occurred and if there is a need for some sort of legal recourse.
What about the amendments being put forward by Craig Thomson so that the ban only relates to commercial fishing? Is that something that you support?
Well, here again, I've spoken to Craig on this, but I haven't spent a lot of time on it. I wouldn't see that as being the determinant of whether I supported it or not. I think that'll come down to the rights of the company, the way in which this has been dealt with under the current EPBC Act. I think it's Part 10 of that Act and how that could potentially apply. So I'm not too concerned about whether they have social implications left in or recreational fishing taken out, all those issues. My decision will be made on whether this is a process that's been followed correctly and whether there is a real need for the government to interrupt that process and actually start another process. The precedent that would set what that actually means longer term and what it means to other scientific processes that have been put in place, including the one that I've been working on, as I said, in terms of coal seam gas and other issues.
So do you think this is a knee-jerk reaction then on the part of the government bowing to environmental groups rather than sound policy?
Well, whether it's a knee-jerk or not is probably irrelevant. It is rushed, and I said to the Minister yesterday that I wasn't going to be rushed in this. I had a whole range of other meetings. I know they were keen to try and do something yesterday. I made a point at the very start of this particular Parliament to the Prime Minister that don't rush issues like this where you can make sort of knee-jerk, well, where I could make a knee-jerk reaction. If I'm rushed, I'll vote in the negative, and that's been a long-standing arrangement with the Prime Minister on these sorts of issues. I think both the company and the government and the Parliament to just breathe in a bit. Let's work through this. Let's look at the procedural issues and the scientific issues and then make a decision. I think it's in both their interests that happened, and I'd urge both of them to just back off a bit in terms of rush and hurry.
Do you think it also calls into question the government's ability to get legislation correct the first time round? It looks as though the government will adopt Craig Thomson's amendments to their legislation.
Well, that's what a parliament's about. I don't have any issues with that. I think that's quite refreshing that members of parliament, and we're all elected as equals, as representatives. But
you just said you're concerned about legislation being rushed through. Do these things need to be considered over a greater period of time rather than put together hastily and then amendments done on the run?
Well, the government's entitled, and the minister's entitled to produce legislation. We get legislation through the Parliament all the time. It gets modified in the House of Reps and modified in the Senate. I don't think that's peculiar to a hung Parliament. That's gone through parliaments of all ages. So I don't find that a problem. What I'm saying is that this is a hung Parliament, and I'm not going to be rushed. If others want to be rushed, that's fine. I'm not. If others are totally on top of this issue and know all of the procedures and scientific knowledge, etc., that's fine. I'm a bit behind the game. But in terms of a decision that I make, I want to make it so that when I look back on it, I can judge it as being the correct one in those circumstances at the time.
The government, of course, is saying that it wants to put the super trawler on ice, so to speak, in terms of fishing in Australian waters for a couple of years while more scientific studies are done. Colin Buxton from the Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies has been really vocal on this, and he said that the catch that the super trawler was expected to make was one of the most conservative in the world. Are you confident that the science that might come out of this new inquiry will differ from the science that already exists?
No, I don't know, Karina. I'm not a marine biologist. The last fish I caught was in Keepit Dam about 23 years ago. So I'm not an expert on this. I've got a photo of it if you want to. No, but they're the sorts of issues I want to look at. But this came on us on Tuesday. I'm aware that the company was told last Friday. I think it might have been a little bit more appropriate if that is the case, that the company was told last Friday that the crossbenchers were actually informed before Tuesday. Because there is a degree of pressure to try and get it through the Parliament this week. That may or may not happen. But if we'd had more time over the weekend to do some of the work that I want to do on this, it could be that my vote's crucial. It may not be. But I'm going to go through the issues, and the issue you just raised is one of those things that I'm looking at, and there's some legal argument to come back this morning as well.
And in terms of how long you think this is likely to take to get a resolution, are you willing to take as long as you need to get the information that you want, regardless of feeling the pressure to get a decision through the Parliament?
Well, I don't feel the pressure. I think some within the government do. My advice to them, as of yesterday, was to just slow down. And I'd advise the company to do that as well. I think everybody just back off. Let's get some facts on the table so people can make clear decisions. There's a lot of amendments sitting in the Parliament now, most of which I don't think most of the parliamentarians would actually understand. And there's a narrative going on out in the public arena. But it is fair to say that I do have very real concerns in terms of process, the process that's occurred in the past over the last couple of years for this company, and what a potential change of that process means, not only in terms of this particular issue, but government involvement in other procedural issues that people have put their faith in.
Tony Windsor, we thank you for your time and hope you get some time to go fishing again soon.
There might be a boat to go on. Thanks, Karina.